Thank you very much, and welcome everyone to this Eden community event. Eden, as many of you probably know, is not just a garden, but Eden also stands for Europol Data Protection Experts Network. So this is basically a network comprising not only law enforcement, data protection officers, regulators, NGOs, private party representatives, but basically anyone interested in topics drawing links between data protection, cybersecurity, and law enforcement. And our goal as Eden is to enhance both freedom and security. And to that end, every year, Eden is organizing a conference. The next one is taking place in Malta on 21st and 22nd of October. It's co-organized with ERA, that's the European Law Academy. And I encourage you to check the website for the program and registration. I put the link in the comments down there. But today we are here to experience an Eden community event. And the thing with these community events is that they can be organized by just any Eden members. So that means that what we're going to discuss here today doesn't necessarily reflect the position of Europol as an organization. Special thanks here to Dr. Ilya Kolochenko, who basically organized this Eden community event under the title Prevention of GenAI Misuse by Organized Crime in Nation States in 2025, Technology, Policy, and Law. So welcome once again very much. My name is Jan Ellermann. I'm a senior specialist in Europol's data protection function, and I'm here with 5 excellent speakers from all over the world, basically. So for one of them, it's now 9 p.m. in the evening already. Others in this call, it's now 8 a.m. in the morning. So here in The Hague at Europol headquarters, I have the convenience slot because it's 2 p.m. So I neither needed to get up super early nor work long hours. But huge thanks to all our panelists for the extraordinary commitment making this happen. I hope I will pronounce all the names correctly, but let me welcome all our speakers today. So the first one will be Nicholas Kapt. He is attorney at law and founder at Artificial Intelligence Geneva Summit. He's going to expand on deepfakes and also draw links to data protection issues, of course. Furthermore, you will get to know Donata Strong-Skilrat. She's an attorney at law and co-chair of the e-privacy committee at the American Bar Association, also known as ABA, and also their representative to the United Nations. Next will be Professor Craig Lischer. He's a professor at GMU Law School, a former special counsel to the FBI's National Security Branch and acting deputy chief of staff to the FBI director. He's going to share an adversary perspective, basically. And the next speaker, the fourth one, is going to be Professor James W. McCammond, Chief Digital Transformation Officer at the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And James is also professor at GMU Law School. He's going to expand on the use of technology, digital prevention, and including false identities usage at the borders of the US. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Wook Kang. Wook is professor at the Korean National Police University, is president of the Drone and Security Research Institute, and president of the Korean Financial Crime Prevention Association. So Wook will expand on Korean projects, and we decided he also has to cover the whole rest of the world. So he's going to have a tricky role here, a challenging role as well. Each speaker is going to have something like 8 minutes to present his or her core findings on the topic at hand. And afterwards, we move on to a moderated talk. And I encourage all of you in this call, also participants, you can ask questions. So there's a Q&A field somewhere in the Zoom window, which you can use to drop your questions. I'm going to try to regularly check. So drop them at any given moment if you like. We are supposed to be here 1 hour max, so at 3 p.m. my time, and we're gonna call it a day. With that, I welcome the first speaker of today's Eden Community webinar, Nicholas Kept. So, Nicholas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jan. So today I will address the topic of the use of deepfakes by organized crime for fraudulent purposes. So I'll try now to share my screen, this one. So is it working?
Yeah, looks perfect. Looks perfect, Nicholas.
Perfect.
Super.
Okay. Wonderful. So first, a few words for introduction. So I'll be talking about deepfakes. So those could be defined as AI-generated or manipulated image, audio, or video content and that's the important point, that resembles existing person, also object, places, entity, or events, and would falsely appear to be a person, to be authentic or truthful. So this is important because all AI generated content are not deepfakes. Of course, you can have AI synthetic content of a person who does not exist that can also be used for fraudulent purposes. So basically, what I want to explain now is a bit how generative AI is used to create deepfakes. So with regard to the inputs, you will have a picture or video taken from public data database, from coming from personal data breach into companies or individuals' computers, identity theft, or biometric spoofing. And what you can obtain with the deepfake process is either image or it might be voice cloning, image might be still image or videos. And I will show you in a few minutes one example that's actually happened in a case that was handled by my law firm. So basically, with regard to the stages of creating a fraudulent deepfake, this is quite usual. It starts with social engineering phase. So people gathering information as to how to work a company, to understand who's doing what, who's the accountant, and to get the fullest picture possible. Then this kind of intelligence gathering phase might be through cyber attack, might be through social engineering, meaning using psychological ways to get information, even privileged information, can be a threat. We can also use a dark web or even open source contents. And then the second part is, of course, the content creation of the deepfake can take different forms. And then the cyber fraud in itself. I mean, there is a very mainstream example that you probably also in the news lately. It was uh, um, kind of really bizarre. That was the Brad Pitt scam in France. So a woman was thinking she was a kind of relationship with Brad Pitt, and to comfort that woman, he constantly sends images of him at the hospital or in different places to kind of give credits to the storytelling. Um, the real case I had very recently as law firm, basically, it's all about the fake WhatsApp profile, so the impersonation of the CEO professional account of quite a large company. So there was most probably, I mean, we don't know about that so far, and there is a criminal investigation going on in different countries in Europe, including Switzerland, but basically they were able, one way or another, to get information about who was doing what in that company, and especially to identify who was the accountant, and to also to know that she was in a position to make bank transfer by herself without any other validation. So the setup of the scam, it all started with all those I mean the fake, it was a fake CEO. I mean the real CEO was away. I mean it's always the case, and that's the need for social engineering, because usually it doesn't work if you pretend to be the CEO and the CEO is sitting next to the accountant. So basically the CEO was away, and there was a fake CEO asking the CFO through a fake WhatsApp account if she had received an invoice from a consulting firm. And she said, no, I don't know, but I will check. And basically say, yes, so please contact immediately the person at the consultancy firm, and I give you the direct number of that person. So we need to receive that invoice today. And so she complied with that. She received then a fake invoice. It was looking quite good, of course, a forged document, but quite legit when you look at it at the first glance. The CFO notices errors with regard to VAT and other stuff and asked the invoice to be amended, and it was. So a revised invoice was sent, and along with audio messages of the consultant saying, sorry, I'm in a meeting all day, but I hope it's all fine with you. So it gives comfort. We don't know if it was a deepfake because we don't know what was the actual voice of the person that was impersonated in that scam, because two persons was basically impersonated in that scam, the CEO of the company plus the consultants. And then afterwards, there is a confirmation written on the WhatsApp, confirmation of the CEO, and the CFO makes a first bank transfer of an amount that is not that much important, 45,000 euros. And then the next day, there is a fake CEO who sent to the CFO a few WhatsApp audio messages. And this time it's a voice cloning of the CEO and say, now, thank you for yesterday. Now we need to make two additional wire. And those were of different amounts, so 400,000 and 600,000. And it was, and she proceeded to that. So it was kind of a case where there was like a double deepfake, also using impersonation by creating a fake telephone account on WhatsApp. And basically, the thing is, it does work. The good thing is we reacted really quickly in a way that the funds were finally blocked in the recipient banks in different countries, including Austria. And of course, criminal complaints have been filed for fraud, attempted fraud, and identity theft, and this is ongoing, of course. We'd like to underline that we have handled many similar cases. So meaning this is not about just being scenario. I mean, this is the real stuff now, even in Switzerland. So this is really established. It's a way to commit fraud, and this is right here, right now. It's not in the future. So one has to keep that in mind. We handled many similar cases, notably one that was interesting that involved an impersonator of a very high-ranked diplomat, and it was the same saying that the voice has been cloned. And we do understand that this is done through material that is freely available on the internet, for example, YouTube videos or videos on the website of the company. So one has to keep in mind that all those material can be used to create very easily deepfakes, including audio deepfakes who are very convincing, and especially when sent through WhatsApp, it's quite reassuring because everyone uses it. So with regard to data protection, of course, the challenge of data protection in the face of problem deepfakes by organized crime. There is this use I mentioned of hyper-realistic synthetic videos or audios to impersonate individuals, extract confidential information, manipulate or extort third parties, including also companies and authorities. So there is special threats in addition to, of course, the criminal side, the civil side. There is also specific threats to data protection. First is confidentiality breach, the personal data extracted through sophisticated phishing sometimes. There's a violation of the lawfulness principle. I mean, of course, obviously, there is an unauthorized use of images, voice, or biometric identifiers to create and manipulated content. Security is undermined. The traditional authentication, biometric, video, voice becomes obsolete when faced with deepfake technology. You also have cross-cutting issues beyond criminal offenses, fraud, impersonation, all that I mentioned before. Deepfakes challenge the very core architecture of GDPR and similar data protection laws, and weakening in that way digital trust and data sovereignty. So what can we seek for? What are the possible approaches and legal options for data protection? Of course, the first part is a technical approach, so development of deepfake detection technology, leveraging metadata analysis, texture scrutiny, or micro-level inconsistencies. And as you all know, I mean, it's every day more difficult to detect deepfakes. Every day is easier to make a very convincing deepfake, but every day it's more complicated to have a good detection of those. You have the deployment of enhanced authentication tools, thinking of cryptography, blockchain, timestamp, watermark to kind of try to ensure content integrity and provenance. And of course, legal and regulatory parts, so clarification and maybe adaptation of existing frameworks. So to explicitly address fraudulent deepfakes as an unlawful processing of personal data, which of course it is, strengthening security obligation, maybe requiring data controller to proactively detect and respond to manipulated content. And also, of course, cross-border and public-private cooperation, because we are talking about a matter that is transnational, it's not one country. I mean, for sure, the scam I discussed before with the WhatsApp conversation was with people based in different countries. They were definitely not based in Switzerland. So there is a need for cross-border, enhanced cross-border and public-private cooperation, sharing databases, and to kind of refine detection system. So for the when it comes to strategic perspectives and future research, say legal and technical resilience, redesigning data protection architectures to account for large-scale automated audiovisual manipulation. That first. The future challenges, of course, it's as always, it's balancing protection against deepfakes, also with fundamental rights, freedom of speech, right of image, copyright, and the like, and also at last the interdisciplinary approach. So bridging law, computer science, ethics, and social science to grasp the socio-economic and cultural impacts of this emerging threat on data protection, and of course also education. And this is key in those elements. And there is a strong need for education, not only for kids, but also for all part of the population. And otherwise, I mean, it will be a total disaster. And the use of AI, not only for deepfakes, but for other purposes as well, is massive and is a great challenge. So thank you very much for your attention, and happy that we can discuss later on.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Niklas, for this for sharing those insights. I think which pretty much match with what we also see at Europol. So for those of you who would like to check, there's also a product out there from our innovation lab, which is called Facing Reality, Law Enforcement and the Challenge of Deepfakes. And what you have described, I think all of us have seen it. I still remember one of the first ones which came to my attention when Barack Obama was out there, and all of a sudden he became utterly rude, which was not very typical for him. And this looked so realistic, and things only got scarier ever since.
And it was a long time ago, so the quality was not
absolutely.
the one of 2025. So it still was very good. Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. So with that, I would immediately like to hand over to Donata, conscious of time also. So Donata, floor is yours.
Can you see my screen okay?
We can hear you, yes. All is fine.
And we can see you as well, yes.
Okay, awesome. So I'll be discussing the privacy perspective of GenAI misuse by organized crime and nation states. So looking at this from a privacy perspective, we want to first look at what data is organized crime able to obtain. And this has stayed consistent throughout time. Organized crime has frequently tried to obtain this type of data. What has changed with AI is that the misuse of AI by organized crime has enhanced the ability to obtain this data. They can obtain more data, they can obtain it faster, and they can obtain it easier. So personal data that organized crime will try to obtain would be names, addresses, emails, phone numbers, social security numbers for those of us living in the US, passport numbers, insurance information, and financial data. And they want to also obtain access. So access to email accounts, banking accounts, social media accounts, your home, things like that. And that would be to perpetrate crime. So to steal personal information and potentially put it on the dark web and sell it, to use that information to commit fraud or to steal somebody's identity. It can also be used to launder money, also can be used for human trafficking, can be used to surveil individuals and use that information to extort somebody, or also to use that information to create false identification documents. And James will be discussing that later, which I think will be really interesting. So all of this data that can be obtained can be used by organized crime for extremely nefarious purposes. Even as Nicholas discussed, it can be used for deepfakes as well, to further scam individuals or take money or do things to them. And I think it's really interesting because we think of this as, okay, so there's a deepfake created, or there's a phishing email, or there's malware and things like that. But even things that we use AI for every day, even just for fun, you've seen the Studio Ghibli trend, or you've seen people upload their pictures into an AI to turn themselves into what they would look as a baby. All of that information can be used to obtain biometrics, which can be used to create those deepfakes, or can be used to create those false identification documents. So we have to be, as consumers, we also have to be extremely careful as to how we use AI and what we upload into it, because if that information is breached, it can be used in really bad purposes. So how does organized crime use AI and use your data? So they can create false social media profiles knowing your name, your address, where you've lived, where you've gone to school, who you're friends with, obtaining pictures of you, creation of messages to victims. So if they are trying to create a message to your brother to obtain money from them, if they know all this data about you, they'll say, okay, come over to my house. I just moved to this address, if they know that you moved the other day. Language translations, fake websites and chatbots, if they know how you communicate, they will know what to say to exactly scam you. Creating deepfakes. They can also be used to create pornographic photos of an individual. So if they have your biometrics, they can place your face onto a pornographic photo, and then use that to extort money from somebody. Disguising malware, guessing passwords. There can also be attacks that target other AI assistants. So if they know that you have a child and you have a baby monitor, or you have an Alexa in your home, things like that. And then it can also be used for hacking too. So when it comes to organized crime and AI, what are some of the solutions? So first, we need to understand how organized crime uses AI, so that we can nip those things in the bud. We can know, okay, this is a very high risk area. This is an area that we need to look at closer. Creation of sensible but strict laws, rules, and regulations covering the development and dissemination of AI systems. So creators of AI should be aware of the fact that their AI may be misused by organized crime, and that they can implement specific features or stops or blocks to prevent some of these uses. Create threat assessments and continuously map the AI threat landscape so that we're up to date of exactly what's happening in real time. Developing AI-powered cybersecurity and privacy countermeasures. Training law enforcement agencies and cybersecurity professionals of how to assess and how to thwart these risks. And then also educating the public on how to spot and defend against threats caused by the use of AI by criminals. There will always be criminals that pass through law enforcement. That will always happen, no matter how good law enforcement is. But if we educate the public and say, okay, you need to have a safe word with you and your family, so only you and your family members know this word. And if you're getting some kind of strange requests that may be coming from your sister or your mom, and it seems weird to you, ask them for this word, and only they will know this word. And if they don't know this word, you know it's fake, and you know that this is a scam. On the other hand, we have nation states and the misuse of AI. So this is slightly different in terms of personal information that's being obtained. So if you live in a particular country, they most likely already know your name and your address and your workplace. They will know your passport number. They will know your driver's license ID number, because you live there. So usually that information is already known. But there's other information that nation states may be trying to obtain, like DNA samples, your chat history, your location in any particular place and time, your social media posts, and your bank account information, things that are not necessarily directly related to information that governments maintain about you when you live there. Now, this can be used to obtain data. So personal data, we would define that as any information that can be identified, can identify an individual, or any information relating to an identified individual. So in the second part, this would be information related to somebody who's identified. So think about things that they might find undesirable, like your political leanings, your religious affiliation, maybe your sexual preferences or gender identity, your family affiliations. What is your family doing? And any activity that they may perceive as criminal or non-desirable. So, for example, in certain companies, being an LGBTQ individual is extremely dangerous because it is considered criminal activity in certain parts of the world. So if nation states are able to obtain this information about you, maybe they know that you went to a meeting of similar like-minded people, or you went to a certain bar, or you went to a certain club where this type of activity happens, that might be used against you potentially in certain countries. Now, how do nation states misuse AI? So they can use facial recognition to determine your location. So for example, you're at this protest, or you're at this rally, or you're at this bar, or you're at this club, or you're around people that they don't like. It can be used for internet censorship, so it can, further censor the internet against free speech and things like that. It can be used for predictive policing. So, for example, they might say, okay, this area, we think that there's going to be a lot of crime in this area, and we're going to send a lot of police there all the time. It can be used for election interference, promulgating misinformation and deepfake campaigns, psychological warfare, prosecution of marginalized groups or civil society groups, certain groups that are fighting for the rights of other individuals, whether that be privacy or freedom of speech, and then also social credit systems as well. Now, some of the solutions are similar. So, you see regulations like holding developers, disseminators, and individuals accountable, educating the public on critical thinking, spotting disinformation and AI threats. But some of these are a little bit different in that, AI systems could be developed to detect and counter the malicious use of AI by nation states. You can share information with the international community about the misuse of AI, and then invest in research on AI security, robustness, and resilience against attacks. And then lastly, supporting civil society and leaders fighting for the right to privacy. So informing them, okay, here are the threats that you might face. Here's how to protect yourself against those threats, and here's how to continue the good work that you do. So thank you so much.
Oh, it took a moment to unmute. Apologies for that. The button was not coming up. But thank you so much, Donata, for your intervention. So this was a bit scary, truly inspiring at the same time. So I very much liked your appeal here or emphasis on consumer awareness, because indeed all these AI tools out there are so appealing, aren't they? So we are all, I think pretty much all of us is in it to say, let's simply try and use stuff. But that can also go wrong because that data is collected for a purpose and not only for good purposes. And I very much loved your recommendation here on the safe word in the family. So that safe word doesn't exist in our family, but will as of tonight. So for me, that's already the first very important takeaway here. Then also this aspect of regulation of AI, right? In Europe, we have a lot of discussion. Is that ultimately threatening innovation? We have the EU AI Act, as you know. Then versus the concept where you say, better unleash it all because otherwise we won't win the race, for instance, with China. And then also your expansion here on nation states was very inspiring. I find this example of, well, sexual orientation, in our Western societies or in Europe, at least in the moment, still in the majority of member states, let's say, you can feel pretty safe, but you have a point to say sexual orientation can be considered as criminal activity. And that also comes at a time where we see a quite global trend against diversity and inclusion programs, including obviously in the US. So that is worrying stuff. But with that, over to Professor Craig Lischer. So Craig, floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks to Jan and Eden for the opportunity to speak with you today. As we think about ways to prevent the misuse of AI, I want to cover the broader landscape of our adversaries' use of AI. But I should clarify up front that I'm not here representing the FBI today. My comments are based entirely on my own views and research. We're living in a moment of profound technological disruption. Artificial intelligence, especially generative AI, is shaping how we communicate, how we work, and increasingly how our adversaries commit crimes. The same tools that promise tremendous innovation and efficiency for the good guys are being weaponized by the bad guys. And for those of us in law enforcement, this isn't just a challenge. It's here, it's happening, and it's moving faster than most of our policy tools and training. Today, I want to focus on how AI is being misused across three major threat areas: nation state adversaries, terrorist groups, and organized criminal networks. I hope this helps us think more strategically about how AI is already transforming the threat landscape and how we need to respond. So let's start with nation state actors. While generative AI may seem like a new toy for many of us, adversaries like China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea are already using it to target vulnerabilities. China is the most ambitious and sophisticated of the nation state actors. The PRC are using AI to supercharge influence operations, from deepfake videos targeting Taiwan to social media bots designed to undermine trust in democratic institutions. China's married AI with massive data collection, including data stolen from breaches like OPM and the Equifax hacks in the United States. And AI helps the PRC mine, correlate, and weaponize that data to compromise officials, steal intellectual property, and identify human sources. The power of AI makes China's manpower advantage, where their hackers outnumber FBI cyber agents 50 to 1, that much more daunting. Russia leans heavily into disinformation and psychological warfare. Think of the AI-generated fake audio clip of President Zelensky surrendering, or the swarm of deepfake news anchors spreading Kremlin propaganda. These tools are designed to sow confusion, erode unity, and blunt our ability to respond in a crisis. Iran uses AI-enhanced targeting for cyber operations and surveillance. We've seen signs of machine learning being applied to evade intrusion detection and enhance social engineering, especially against dissidents, academics, and US institutions tied to critical infrastructure. While the Iranians are not as technically advanced as China and Russia, they're aggressive and they're learning fast. And don't sleep on North Korea. Pyongyang uses AI in two critical ways: automating cyber heists, think cryptocurrency laundering, and targeting researchers and government employees with spoofed profiles powered by AI-generated personas. They're combining fraud, espionage, and sanctions evasion in ways that are hard to attribute and even harder to stop. Together, these countries show us that AI isn't just a tool, it's a force multiplier. It speeds up the espionage cycle, scales disinformation, and gives bad actors the ability to test and iterate attacks with almost no cost. Turning to terrorist organizations. These groups tend to lag behind when it comes to high tech, but they're catching up, especially with the rise of open source AI. Groups like ISIS and Al Qaeda are experimenting with AI for propaganda, targeting, and tactical planning. One major area is deepfake video, not just for recruitment, but also just to spread fear. Imagine a video that shows a attack that never happened, or a political figure giving a fake speech. These can trigger real-world unrest and overload our response systems. There's also growing interest in AI-assisted IED design, facial recognition, and even drones with autonomous targeting capabilities. A recent UN report warned of slaughterbots, drones that could select and fire on targets without human control. That's not science fiction anymore. In online spaces, generative AI helps terrorists create more polished messaging in more languages, evading detection by platform moderators and drawing recruits who may have been tuning out traditional propaganda. And here's the kicker: AI lowers the barrier to entry. You no longer need a PhD in computer science to automate parts of a terror campaign, and you don't need €1 million. You just need an internet connection and a little wicked intent. Finally, let's talk about the fastest adopters, organized crime groups. The European Union's 2025 SOCTA report makes it clear: criminal networks are already exploiting AI across the entire criminal value chain. From synthetic identities to predictive targeting, they are running their operations like tech startups. In fraud and identity theft, AI is boosting ever more effective social engineering scams by producing convincing fake documents and deepfaked voices and videos. Companies around the globe have lost millions to fraudsters able to create AI-generated voice clones of company executives. Human trafficking and child sexual abuse material cases are also evolving. AI is being used to manipulate existing imagery, making detection and attribution harder. Even more disturbing, as we saw in Operation Cumberland, criminals are using generative tools to produce synthetic CSAM, completely fictional, yet still traumatic and illegal. AI is also transforming money laundering. Criminals are using machine learning to identify vulnerabilities in financial systems, test transaction patterns, and evade anti-money laundering algorithms. And we can't forget drug trafficking. Some cartels are using AI to optimize smuggling routes based on real-time weather, border patrol patterns, and sensor data. This isn't guesswork anymore. It's logistics driven by machine learning. These groups are lean, well-funded, and quick to adapt. They don't care about legal exposure, and they don't need to scale slowly. If a tool gives them an edge, they'll use it tomorrow. So what do we do with all this? First, we need to stop thinking of AI as a future threat. This is now. If our adversaries are already deploying AI, we need to start integrating AI literacy in how we train, investigate, and respond. Second, as we always do, we need to leverage our partnerships and work across silos. These threats don't respect jurisdictional boundaries. They don't care if you're cyber or counterintelligence or counterterrorism. AI-enabled threats cross these boundaries instantly, and our response needs to be just as agile. Third, we need to push for the right legal and policy tools. That includes modernizing surveillance authorities, building safeguards into AI platforms, and clarifying how existing criminal statutes apply to synthetic content and autonomous systems. And finally, we need to protect the public's trust. When people can't tell real from fake and the threat feels invisible, they look to us. How we handle these threats transparently, responsibly, and with integrity will determine whether the public stays with us or tunes us out. Let me close with this. We're in a pivotal moment. The adversaries haven't outpaced us yet, but they're moving fast. And while they may have the tech, we have the mission, we have the partnerships, and we still have the most powerful weapon in any fight, people who care enough to act. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for letting me share this time with you today.
Wow, thank you, Craig. This is inspiring. So thank you also for your global overview of hybrid threat actors. You mentioned basically that nation states and serious criminals collaborate. I took note of your statement that China at the moment has 50 times more resources than the FBI, 50 times more, and the FBI is big, so I don't want to think about the ratio when we look at Europol at all. Iran being particularly aggressive. We heard from North Korea, so I'm very curious also what Wook later will complement in this regard. But also for terrorists, then you said all it takes nowadays is an internet connection to run a whole terror campaign, right? Thank you for your reference to the Europol Serious and Organized Crime report, SOCTA 2025. I think you quoted that on a number of occasions to demonstrate that hybrid threat actors, so nation states, really actively collaborate with criminals nowadays. Our take on it is that the criminals are not necessarily in it for the political goals. They simply care for the money. And if you pay them nicely, they will do whatever you ask them to do. And then your concluding statement, AI is not a future threat, but this is now, and we need an agile response, reminded me of the title of the upcoming Eden conference, which we run under the header Red Light, Green Light, Reduce Complexity, Increase Speed, Defend EU Values. Because if we are not able to defend our values, let's say, they are going to vanish over time. That's at least the concern I have. Good. That takes us to Professor James W. McCammond. So, James, floor is yours.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you to our colleagues. Thank you especially to Eden for sponsoring this time this morning. I'll begin by also thanking my fellow panelists. I feel like I could almost just pause, put the mic down, and say, referencing what the three previous shared, because from the space of interagency and collaboration across borders. The significant misuse of AI by organized crime, the misapplication, and as both Donata and Craig heavily emphasized, we are very much at an inflection point where it does not require a great deal of dollars or design. It's just access to be able to use what we see U.S. Customs and Border Protection and with our colleagues at the FBI and across the federal government and our international partners. Dark intention plus dark innovation is creating some very dark results. And so I agree very much, Craig, with your points overall, and particularly as you noted, we are still ahead at this point. But the ability to interdict, to detect, is something that is very critical for all of us and for U.S. Customs and Border Protection as we are out and across the borders in that space. And so I want to share just a few thoughts then tying to my fellow panelists by way of mission, scope, and what we are doing focusing in the AI space as well as the broader detection. So U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, like most organizations, we rely on data as a central asset. That has proven to be very effective in detection, interdiction, and entrance into the country, but it also means that we must be constantly on the watch for manipulation. On a daily basis, just for background, CBP processes over 1 million passengers and pedestrians a day entering into the United States, and over 225,000 privately owned vehicles and almost 100,000 containers coming in. Each and all of those entry points have hundreds of data points associated with it. So again, that is tremendous for detection. It also opens up for being very cautious on how that we can be certain of the data being collected. And so we, CBP, as a use case, to add to what my panelists said, we use AI and machine learning in countless ways. So combing through the data to find anomalies, items of interest. We cannot pick every single piece of data, but we can screen and filter and present to our frontline officers and agents concerns for anomalies that they can zero in on in the few seconds to minutes that they have for review. And also we try to automate our routine tasks to be able to focus those critical thinking skills of the officers on those anomalies we find. Historically, we've leveraged predictive AI models to try to detect the anomalies, to effectuate smart surveillance as smart surveillance continues to evolve, right? Craig, you mentioned with respect to the quite scary, drone space that can be utilized without any human intervention or action as just one example. So AI, I want to take a positive point as we all recognize the challenges, and also emphasizing AI certainly is a game changer in border security. It augments a lot of our traditional methods with speed, accuracy, predictive capabilities. Some of those examples, how AI, we are leveraging that, but then also where we are seeking to detect the dark innovation and the manipulation. Facial recognition. So facial recognition at the airports, over 1,800 imposters have been intercepted using AI-driven facial comparison since 2018. And again, if you look at the numbers I mentioned on the daily basis, the hundreds of millions a year, it points to the fact that we recognize people that use the legal pathways are generally for the good. But at the same point, almost 2,000 imposters were intercepted using those AI-driven facial comparison. Passport anomaly models that flag inconsistencies in the passport data. And again, it's the aspect that the more that we can enhance the use of AI, those passports that do not have the anomalies, the holders can pass through more carefully, more quickly, because they have been screened and we don't find an anomaly. It then preserves more time for our officers and agents to pause and take a closer look at those for which we have the anomaly. So this helps us in a force multiplying in border security and efficiency. Behavioral analytics that assess travel patterns, particularly risk indicators. And again, that opportunity to take just the split second to very single-digit minutes that our officers and agents have on the front line. Automated license plate and data analysis. That's a bit of an older technology, but also can be open to manipulation, depending on how that's matched against the records. And I'd like to then pivot to several examples of AI applications we are using currently and tying into the national security mission. Again, really tying tremendously into my previous panel's reference points. The quick manipulation by nation-state actors, by bad actors. One of the key examples is fake identities. So we all recognize that if we are emphasizing the integrity of our passports and visas, at the same time, that is critical for public safety and national security. We need to be sure that the underlying data cannot be manipulated as best as possible. Craig pointed out very well. Thousands of individuals a year are attempting to obtain U.S. visas illegally or entrance into the country and to engage in the crimes such as human smuggling, drug trafficking, or fleeing prosecution. And I think it's particularly among the many egregious points, the human trafficking and the drug trafficking. We know that in recent years, what at one time in the United States, there's always sadly been human trafficking and smuggling, but it has become more of an industry. And that industry tied with the same transnational criminal organizations that are working in the drug trafficking space is a very deadly combination. So therefore, the use of a layered technology for CBP and our other colleagues to combat fake identities is critical. And so again, we utilize that space. In that space, we do so by detecting anomalies, one, identifying and verifying the identities, and trying to, as best as possible, support the real-time decision-making at scale. We rely heavily on our officers and agents' expertise in the human intuition aspect, right? The training that says, I have seen this many times before, this is not right. But at the same point, using AI helps force multiply that decision-making. So in the fake identification space, we have constructed or we utilize a layered design of detection. So of course, the secure document design that across the world we are using in the modern passports and visas with the advanced security features, but then also the forensic document laboratories that we use to analyze suspicious identity documents, to detect alterations, counterfeit signs, and then send that back out to our field as quickly as possible. The integration of the biometrics and the databases into the visa and entry process. And of course, as Craig and Donata particularly mentioned, Nicholas as well, the emphasis on adding additional stiff penalties for document fraud, which act as a deterrent in that space, but also integrated with some of the very critical forward thinking we need on AI legislation, privacy, and protection. Two other points as I close in the detection space. Fentanyl. Fentanyl detection is greatly aided by AI. It has helped us, CBP, lead the U.S. government's efforts to interdict fentanyl and the other dangerous synthetic drugs and drugs. Sadly and unfortunately, we know that the creation of fentanyl as a synthetic has set a also pattern for creation of future synthetics, some of which we do not know yet. And so we have significantly invested in trying to utilize the technologies to seize the drugs, identify the fentanyl drugs, and seize as much as possible to send that interdiction signal. For many years, CBP has also used, between the ports of entry, used AI in our automated surveillance towers, as well as with drones and other technologies. So really wanting to emphasize these points, as well as our work in the trade and cargo security. So half of the mission, more or less, of CBP is in the border and between the borders person crossing. But it is also the other half is as the largest U.S. organization focused on the processing of our trade and cargo security. So in that as well, we're using more than 4,000 small-scale, non-intrusive AI and machine learning-based inspection systems to scan the cargoes and the cargo and the packages at our ports of entry. And we cannot do that and do not do that alone, not only across the U.S. government, but we recognize the strong need for enhanced global interoperability, identification, and processing for our cargo processing around the world. And the global trade data that we utilize quite effectively, but remains a bit limited and siloed. And so again, as substance, this, in tying to our discussion, is we need to continue to focus on how we can further modernize the trade system to increase the supply chain transparency and the resiliency through the global interoperability standards, which we are working on. So using those verifiable credentials, decentralized identifiers, will allow us to move all along the supply chain and have a shared picture of the supply chain transactions. Why is that necessary at this time? Because we certainly have a global trade system already and we are moving, is again the same points of the interdiction that we need to effectuate for the deep fakes and the manipulation of not only for person identification, but cargo and trade identification as well. The more that we can secure that, but in one aspect, we can facilitate a quicker supply chain process. At the same time, we can interdict those aspects of the supply chain and the commerce chain that are also going to be used by not only the bad actors in the sense of the direct effect, but also recognizing the transnational criminal organizations and other bad actors outside the nation states, as well as nation states, are seeking funding. And so it's really important that we are able to zero in on that as well in the interdiction. So in closing, I would say, as we look at the threats, the significant impacts to the mission by which we are using AI, and then also seeking to counter the negative use of AI, the dark use, is the ability to have more time for critical threat analysis, and also provides an ability for faster and more automated aggregation and processing. So with that, I just want to say thank you all for the great efforts and partnership, not only on this panel, but really all that we are doing together in collaboration.
Super. Thank you. Thank you so much, James, for this true practitioner's perspective, because you shared things here which for many out there on the screens might not be known simply. So my takeaway is for you, the use of machine learning is in order to deal with massive amounts of data, personal data you have to deal with. Smart surveillance is evolving, and for you, AI is a game changer in border security, you said. So like behavioral analysis, you mentioned travel patterns, fake IDs, detecting anomalies. Fentanyl was also very interesting because I also came across in a Europol report in connection to hybrid threats, then also drugs trafficking was mentioned. And when I first read that, I thought to myself, how does drugs trafficking link with hybrid threat actors? Because you think about critical infrastructure or something. But then the fentanyl example came to my mind indeed. Well, if you spread fentanyl in a country very widely, I think that country will go to its knees. So that can very well be a tactic. Thanks for your transparency here. Over to Dr. Wook Kang, professor at the Korean National Police University. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Ian. My name is Wook Kang, and professor at Korean National Police University. And also, I will talk about AI on the watch, and then I will talk about some legal efforts, and then how to prevent general AI exploitation. And also, I will talk about some specific situation in Asian region, especially more focusing on Korea. And then this work is supported by Korea Institute of Police Technology Keeper. So first of all, AI-based act is enacted. Actually, EU and many countries have their own AI act, and then we developed further, and then we try to regulate AI technology. But also, the main goal of this act is to balance between the guarantee of technology and also, as Donato said, that AI kind of threaten some privacy. So we try to balance between the development of AI and also protection of privacy. And also, actually, it is not effective yet, but we will go further maybe in the future. And also, voice phishing is very severe problem. So we are close to China, and also there are many Korean Chinese who can speak Korean language. And also they use the AI. So for example, if you talk to one word to the scammers, and then they will copy your voice, and then they use your voice to threaten your families or maybe disguise you, and then probably access to some bank or some other agencies. And also, there are some other ways to enhance deception. So it is very severe problem in Korea. So voice phishing is increased, and so more important thing is that the financial loss is huge increase. So more than $200 million in first quarter in 2005. So it is the 120% increase from the same period. So we try to decrease the voice phishing, but it is very difficult. So we used some other technology, especially using AI. So we collect many data from the various sources, web data, mobile data, or purchase data, social data. So we collect the various data and we analyzed some data by using AI. And also we conducted a public awareness campaign and also legal frameworks. And also we also tried to conduct international collaboration. And also we developed AI-powered spam and scam message blocking. So KCC and KISA and also Samsung Electronics work together. So this technology automatically detects and filters suspicious messages containing malicious URLs or scam phone numbers, routing them to dedicated spam inbox for user review. So it is very effective. So we could reduce more than 30% reported scam and spam because we blocked spam and scam in advance. But actually it is installed in Samsung Galaxy phone, but we will try to expand to some other types of phone. So there are several methods. So this technology is combination of advanced machine learning, natural language processing, and behavioral analysis. So content and NLP analysis, and reputation, behavior and anomaly detection, and machine learning, the metadata and authentication are used to develop these technologies. And also, as Nicholas said, that deepfake are used for fraud or some ways. But in Korea, deepfake exploitation, especially deepfake pornography, is a very huge problem in Korea. So there are many more than 1,000 cases in the last year. And also the severe problem is that more than 90% of victims are teenagers. And also 80% of suspects are also teenagers. So teenagers commit deepfake pornography against their friends. So it is very huge problem in Korea. So our government also tried to prevent this some heinous crime. So we legislate and we criminalize the possession or some viewing of some deepfake pornography, and also we try to regulate platforms, especially some specific platforms, and also law enforcement agencies such as police or some prosecutor officers work together to catch some criminals who make deepfake pornography. And also, as Craig mentioned that some North Korea is our very close to South Korea. So there are some issues, and also and then some crimes are used by general AI. So we launched some huge project. So it is called Cyber Cop. So COP means crime investigation and origin tracing and prevention. So it is kind of some huge project that use AI to prevent some crimes by AI. So our government invests more than $20 million for these projects. Actually, it is very simple. It is conception map. So we're gonna collect many data from the external data sources, such as OSINT, dark web, or some SNS, other things. And also we try to collect internal police data, and then based on some various data, we try to develop some analysis system, and then so the result of analysis will be provided to some law enforcement agencies or some system and also real-time crime response center. And also we developed a LAPIS system. In general, AI used English, but our language is Korean. So we develop our own language model. Actually, in general, language means English, but we use the Korean language. So it is customized for Korean languages. So and then also this LAPIS system assists some police officers to reasoning and also infer or some kind of investigation. So we use LAPIS system. And also lastly, so we also consist of National AI Committee and then important ministers, members of the committee, and also this committee is chaired by the president, and also this committee formulate and coordinate national AI policies, and also oversee AI research, but also we try to guarantee the development of AI technologies. And also the committee try to identify and improving AI-related regulation, and also try to promote AI ethics. Actually, it is running over time, so thank you for your listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wook, for this view from another end of the world, let's say, from an Asian perspective, also for concrete examples, AI-driven voice phishing, AI-powered spam and scam message blocking, deepfake exploitation. I found striking because you've told us there are more than 1,000 cases last year alone, and you said 90% plus are teenager victims. So that's an interesting one because it means that it's not just the crazy Brad Pitt cases, which Nicholas has referred to earlier. This is a real thing. That's real crime which affects everyday life. Let me, as a good moderator, quickly check the Q&A section, which, as far as I can see, is still empty. So we don't have any burning questions from the audience. I would just invite all of you, just flip your microphone open. If you would like to comment on what you've heard from your peers, please feel free. We're a bit over time already, but the organizers also have to assure me that we have a few minutes left. So whoever would like to take the floor, please go ahead.
Thanks, Jan. I'll jump in and just thank particularly Wook and James at the end for talking about some of the positive uses from law enforcement. I think it's easy, and I think we probably gave equal time to both at the end of the day, but it's easy to think about the dark uses and let your imagination run wild about how all our adversaries are using these tools. But there are opportunities for law enforcement, and I think our partners highlighted some of those uses at the border and with spam filtering and things like that. There are certainly many more use cases from a law enforcement perspective, but I think it's important to focus on those positive things. There's efficiencies that can be gained through the use of these tools proactively, and we ought to be thinking about how to use those probably more than we already are.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more because also, in particular, if we show commitment as a law enforcement community to do that in a way which respects fundamental rights, including the right to privacy and data protection, I think that needs to be our ambition. Clearly, as I said earlier, enhance freedom and security. That is what we can be proud of, I believe. Donata, from your side?
Yeah, just really interesting to see how AI is being used by law enforcement for good. I definitely would love to learn more about like inconsistencies and anomalies in documents that law enforcement is looking for. That seems like a really interesting topic as well. And definitely the idea of protecting people while still respecting their privacy and their fundamental rights and making sure that everybody's safe without their privacy or their rights being violated too.
Yeah, thank you very much. I couldn't agree more. Nicholas?
Yeah, one thing maybe, we have to remind that it's not limited to, I mean, the AI influence on organized criminality is not limited to deepfakes. For instance, when you receive those requests for help saying, "Hi, I'm in Barcelona, I with no money, I've been stolen everything, all my stuff." And one, of course, of the point you have to check to whether it was legit or not was you looked at the way it was written, say, well, it's full of typos and the way it was
Absolutely.
written. I mean, that
Yeah.
was
The
number
good old
one to
days.
make sure this
Yeah.
is not legend, because of course the header was no use because it was usually done after the email being hijacked. So it was the first thing we looked at, was the quality of the wording. And funny
Yeah.
thing is, with the generative AI, it's exactly now the other way around. I mean, you have to be suspicious if a text is
If
too
it's too
well
good.
written, it's too good,
Yeah, if
So,
it's too good.
it means that you have to change also what you explain to people and the education, because one thing that you might say 1 year ago is not valid anymore. So it needs quick pace in establishing new education rules and with regard to AI.
Yeah, absolutely. James, any famous last words from your side?
Well, I appreciate the feedback as well on the positive uses we're using. I think that Craig, when you had mentioned that we're still ahead, I think in the sense that, and we see that as well. I think it's not only in the data flow, we're able to use AI to integrate, but that we are ahead only requires us to keep moving forward. And both in the use of the technologies and constantly adjusting the anomalies. And Donato would love to chat more, maybe in other spaces on that too, in ways that we can keep fine tuning. Is a key of that is the collaboration. We each individually across agencies and governments see much, but we don't see all. And so I think our abilities to find that both in the technical space, and I think Wook, you pointed out some additional elements on that are really critical, but so too is the collaborative sharing and the education, because in that our sum is much greater. But we have to keep moving forward ourselves and not let, again, the dark innovation overtake us.
Yeah, indeed. Wook, of course, also you have some last words. I noted basically you had the task to expand on the whole world and you covered South Korea only, but that's only fair. So I think then the rest of the world we have to cover in the next webinar. But also over to you in case you would like to draw any concluding remarks here.
Okay, I think it is a very good opportunity for me to exchange some opinions, especially I learned lots of things from the Western perspective, even though I studied in the US, but general AI should be misused by criminals, and so we work together. As I said, that international collaboration is very key thing. So I think this webinar is very good opportunity to work together, and so anyway, we should work together to fight against general AI criminals. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think with that, let me check one more time in our Q&A. Audience is still happy, I would say. No burning questions there. So with that, then I would wholeheartedly like to thank you for your participation in this webinar, for making it so interesting and inspiring, for your availability that late in the evening and that early in the morning. So Wook, I think can go to bed now with a good feeling because you've worked very hard. For the other ones, I trust you are really awake at this point in time. So this was the Eden webinar on prevention of Gen AI misuse by organized crime in nation states in 2025, technology, policy, and law. What remains to be said from my side is if you like this kind of conversation and exchange, you're more than welcome to become an Eden member, a member of the Europol Data Protection Experts Network, because we're going to have more of this, including the Eden Conference in Malta on 21st, 22nd of October this year. There's also an Eden LinkedIn group. So I trust you're going to find it if you Google for Europol, Eden, LinkedIn, and if not, just please feel free to contact and reach out to me, so I will facilitate the process. Thank you to all once again, and have a very good night, day, and wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.